Hello, my love.
I don't think I've ever called anyone that I've shared a bed with my love.
So you've called people that you didn't share a bed with your love?
Yes. Yeah. Um, I just thought we haven't done a podcast or live or anything together as far as any kind of episode since our house burned down.
Is that true?
Yeah. What have we done?
We've had to have done something. There's no way.
Nothing.
You and I talk way too much to not have recorded it at some point in the last few months.
There has been nothing on my feed since the house burned down.
Lives, maybe then.
My first question to you is this. When you see on our calendar, our shared calendar, afternoon delight, is there a panic that sets in you? What are some feelings that come up when you see that? Now, if you put it on there, you'll probably have a different feeling. But if you see it because I put it on there, and also tell the listeners what that even means.
I mean, I think that the listeners know what an afternoon delight is. I'm
It could
hoping.
be a lot of things because we've also redefined that term afternoon delight. Today on our calendar at 1 p.m., it says afternoon delight, but as you can see, our clothes are on and we're being creative. It says creative edition.
Yeah, I think that's new. I mean, I think I like that. I think not redefining, expanding what the term means is important. Um, not just for us, but I think for everybody. I think we've talked before about different ways that we try to connect throughout the day, even when we're busy, right? Like we've talked about 5 minutes before, where we'll just take 5 minutes and lay next to each other. We've talked about meditating next to each other. Um, and I know, look, like our life is not what everybody's looks like. We both work from home. And so we've got that, you know, space to do that. But
Let's make sure our heads are the same size. We can step back a little bit. Perfect. In real life, my head is bigger than Vanessa's. Vanessa has a little peanut head. I've got a huge plum.
um, but I like the creative edition. I mean, I think we do this anyway. I think we just haven't named it something. But going back to your original question around the panic, I don't know if panic is the right word. I think that you and I, this is not surprising. We've talked about this a ton before, and people have heard us talk about this. I think you and I put different weight on different forms of connection. And I think sex and physical connection in that way is one of those differences, right? So I think it depends on where my headspace is. I think similar to your writing style, you are able to drop in and out of creativity on a whim. It's something I admire about you. I like wish that I had more of the capacity to do. Like y'all listening, this man wrote an entire memoir in like 6 weeks. I mean, it's insane the way that
3 weeks, but no one's counting. I think it
it's
was 3 weeks, but no one's
insane the way
counting.
that you're able to work.
Yeah.
You'll be like at a coffee shop and you'll have 10 minutes in between something and you'll be like, I'm going to write my book for this next 10 minutes. You'll be in an in between or at the gym for 20 minutes and you'll be able to be like, I'm going to write my book. And that's just not the way my brain works, right? And I think that you're similar in the way that you want to physically connect. Um, you're able to like drop in and then drop out. And it's hard for me to do that. So like if you put that on my calendar and my day is stacked, I'll feel panic.
Yeah.
It'll give me anxiety because I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to like I'm gonna have to get present. I'm gonna have to like take myself out of work mode and I'm gonna have to connect and I'm gonna have to be there. And it starts to make me like feel very scrambled and very like, oh my God, can I do this? Can I handle this? Oh shit, it's not gonna live up to what John wants, or I don't really want to do this, but I can't tell him that. And so that's the kind of shit that starts to make me scramble. If I have a day where I feel more open and I'm not as I don't know, stressed out about work, it's easier for me to be able to drop in like that.
Going back to that, dropping into creativity or a connection space, I see life as a creative expression interrupted by shit we got to do. So it isn't necessarily that I drop in. I've never dropped out. So like
Yeah.
I've always seen life as so before anything creative, it was more like riding bikes and breakdancing and other obsessions. But I feel like life is a creative, spiritual, um, maybe sensual, sexual, like it's an expression interrupted by, all these other things that we got to do, like pay taxes.
I think that speaks to, I mean, we've talked about our upbringing before, even on your podcast. I think that speaks to what we were allowed to do when we were younger, right?
Yeah.
Like the
Yeah.
space that we were allowed to embody. I think it's not
Right.
just me being a woman, but I think it's maybe it's an older, eldest child, youngest child thing. I think there's a lot of things that, that factor into that. Like my creativity and play came second. Like I had shit to do, right? I
Right.
had to keep the
You got to
boat
grow up.
moving forward.
You're
So
responsible. Yeah.
yeah, like it
Yeah.
that when you say that, there's a part of me that feels jealous. Like I've said, even the way that you are with your creativity, there's a part of me that feels jealous of your ability to do that. And then there's almost like a part of me that has that like must be nice feeling attached to it,
Yeah,
to be
and I
able to
think
live
for
that way.
me, I have to consider how you're wired and how you're raised, and that maybe you're not, because for me, I want you to join me in that space, but maybe that is not how you roll. Maybe it's not natural for you, and also maybe you don't want to join me in that space. So that's also okay too, right? When you were gone today in the morning, uh, I had this urge to masturbate, and I got very like aroused, and I was thinking to myself, okay. Um, Where is this coming from, and is it coming from kind of a healthy, expansive place? Because I also don't want to judge it, or is it coming from a place of like numbing or an unhealthy place? Uh, so recently, I'm on day 12. Starting in the 1st of May, I went on a 30-day kind of a celibacy challenge. I don't like the word challenge because it feels
Journey.
very like I'm gonna do this, and it feels
I
very
agree.
like like conquering. It feels very ego driven. It feels like another notch in your belt, or tied to a scoreboard. So I don't like the word challenge, but I
Journey.
wanted to know what it felt like uh, to be celibate. And this doesn't mean to be not sexual, right? This does, because then that defeats that's not what I want. I wanted it to be like a month of exploring sexual energy, and also seeing if I could channel it, right? So it's kind of a personal goal. It's something I've never done before. And so that's what I wanted to be about. And I'm just saying that because if you're listening, you're like, oh, John was going to masturbate. Who cares?
Yeah.
And
A lot of
right.
context, right? That
Yeah.
seems a
Yeah.
little weird.
So I sat with it. And then I also allowed myself to look at images and
Mm,
to ask myself what that felt like, and if it's different in any way. Right. So, like, one of the revelations I had was, um, what turned me on, say, like 10 years ago, I don't think does. At least it's changed a little bit as far as images, fantasy, and stuff. And so I didn't masturbate. I sat with myself. I also allowed what I felt, so I didn't reject what I felt. Um, so I was kind of aroused. I allowed myself to fantasize a little bit. I looked at some images and realized, oh, well, like what even turns me on is starting to change. As a 52-year-old man. So I noted those things, and then it kind of passed, and then I was able to go work or go get some other things done. Oh, I started cleaning. So I started cleaning the bathroom and the look at
welcome to my world.
now Vanessa's turned on.
Now I'm aroused. But welcome to my world, the channeling it into cleaning. That's like my anxiety
Oh,
go to.
I thought you were gonna say, "Welcome to my world." That's all I do here. You
No,
don't do that
absolutely
shit.
not.
Okay, good, good.
No, we are
Okay,
50
so
50 in that.
today, Vanessa is doing an event with her friends, and I said I've my schedule. I could clean the bathroom, so I started cleaning the bathroom, and then I thought, let's just really clean it. Let's clean the shower. So I cleaned all that, and then I also told myself, there's no need to announce this. When Vanessa comes home, you can say it matter of factly, but you're not dangling this over her head as now I want to cash in,
Mhm.
right? And I think I don't know. I mean, if I've done it indirectly, I definitely wasn't conscious of it. I never think to myself like, okay, I did something.
Yeah.
I'm gonna I'm gonna
I need
take
a
these tickets and
reward.
get the stuffed animal, right? And my stuffed animal is usually something that has to do with connection, sex, intimacy. Um, even when we just went to a festival, and babe, when I got those burgers for you guys, You sat down. I heard you say, "There's a huge line for the burger truck. I don't wanna wait in line." And then I heard me say, "Well, I'll go wait in line for you.
Mm.
I'll go do it." And so that's why I did it. I didn't do it to collect points or to think, if I go get her if I feed her stomach, she'll fulfill my fantasy or need, right? Now, if it happens, I'm not gonna push you away, but I'm not expecting it. It's not, like, tied to anything. It was genuine. She doesn't wanna wait in line. I'll go wait in line. It's not a big deal.
You know what I think is lovely about that is the way that I understand and speak to love languages has changed a lot over the last couple of years. Probably even more, even so, like since we wrote our book where we talked about love languages in there. Um, I used to have it like in my phone, John likes words, like remind yourself to give him words, right? Because it doesn't come naturally to me. And I think even in the way you used to do acts of service, it was very like, okay, I got to make sure I do this act of service, right? Because it's something that Vanessa gets filled
Mhm.
up on or whatever.
Mhm.
And I think what you're speaking to is so lovely because it's actually more the way that I now, I don't know, work with or I guess lean into love languages more now than I used to, which is when it arises and it comes from a place of genuine, like, I want to do this for you and I don't expect anything in return. It's just, it's natural and it's genuine, even if it's not something I would typically do. Like, that's when I lean into that. Right. And it feels like that with you. It's like, um, that is an act of service, right? And I could see myself doing that for you, obviously, and that would be really natural for me because it's just how I am, right? Whether it's you, whether it's my friends, whatever, I show you I love you through my doing. But I love that example because that is an act of service, and it felt like it came from a genuine place, and it wasn't done laced with a an expectation, right? And I think that's where we get tripped up is when we do things for people, say things for people, buy people gifts, like whatever love language you're talking about, and there's an expectation attached. It's not genuine, right? I don't know. I just think that that was something you're speaking to, and it's really lovely.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's also for me a sign of a little bit of maturity.
Mhm.
And if you guys haven't, or if you haven't read our book, "It's Not Me, It's You," one of the things that we've actually been expressive about, and we see it actually all around us, is as we become adults, as we have kids, and as women go through change in hormones, bodies, and also men as well, and then also shit has to be on the calendar, it doesn't get done. It's really hard to fit in intimacy, but also it's also hard to have a nice cadence and dance, right? So
Mm,
I would say not only clients but friends, pretty much everyone around us is struggling with, and these are general themes: mom being touched out, dad being sexually frustrated, not knowing where to meet, um, where is it self-abandonment, right? Which should not happen because with that comes resentment and drift. And where is, the middle line or some kind of, here's where I would go. Where is, I want to show up for you in this way and love you this way, but also in a way that's honest to me for both parties. How do we create that
mm.
when there's a ticking clock, when people need to pick up kids and take them to dance, when there's laundry, cleaning, and we're all trying to work and build our little, businesses. Where does all that fit in? It's hard. It's hard. I think it's become an epidemic as far as uh, our generation and where to meet for connection.
Yeah, and I mean, I think there's so many things at play there, right? I think it's even interesting to use the term "it's become an epidemic" because I think that it's always been a disconnect. I think it's more prevalent now. I think men are more, maybe it's more acute for men now because for the first time ever, I mean, literally, this is the first generation. So I'm an elder millennial, right? We'll say Gen X, elder millennial. Women can say no.
Yeah.
Right? Like we literally could not do that
Right.
until this generation.
Right.
We couldn't even have a bank account until the late 70s, early 80s, depending on where you lived, right? So And that's my generation. Um, and so, yeah, I think it is more acute for men, but I think that it's probably been that way for women a lot longer. It's just that we weren't allowed to be honest about it.
Sure.
You
I mean,
know,
it's
I
almost
think.
like it's always been there, but it's finally exposed. It's always been there, but people are now talking about it. It's always been there, but not. It's no longer repressed. Yes, people have choices now. No is a complete sentence. You don't have to be married. We could co-parent. Like there's other
Mhm,
things that could happen where you're not stuck in something
mhm,
because of society or because of something that is beyond your control. You know.
mhm.
And so it's like, what do we do with that? I mean, in a way, it's all kind of new. You know, if you, it's not new as in like a new topic as far as in the last 5 years, but it is new if you look at the grand. If you pull back and zoom out and look at men in relationship and the dynamics and how much that we've changed.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was telling you the other day that I saw this post and I thought it was really interesting where this woman said, there's I can't remember exactly what she said, but basically she was like, there's like a grand, almost like an awakening, right? Like with women, this generation, it's like there's like what did I say? It was like a reclaiming of their body, right?
Sure.
And all of the kind of trickle downs from that. And I was saying I thought that was so interesting because, look, I mean, if we're talking, obviously we're talking heteronormatively here because you and I are in a heterosexual relationship, but um, of course men are in the crosshairs of that.
Or
How could you not be?
directly.
You're in relationship with us. And so if there's a mass like reclamation of, of women taking back their bodies, um, and of course we know that when things change, it usually is a swing of a pendulum, right? Then of course men are in the crosshairs of that. What do we do with that? I think you and I are trying to figure that out. I think you and I are in it just like anybody else, right? And we're trying to bring things like conscious communication and empathy and showing up for hard conversations, and we're trying to bring our tools, which thank God we have after years and years and years of work before meeting and during our relationship, that not everybody has. But even with those tools, it's still a fucking hard place to be in, right?
Also, yes, it's a hard place to be in, and I'm realizing it's also not a logistical thing. It's not like a scheduling problem.
Right.
Because also, what happens is the energy. You know what I'm saying? Like the masculine feminine dance. There's a lot that happens that isn't about logistics or about doing it X amount of times a week or what you're doing. Um, there's a underlining like a flow, an ebb and flow. There's and that's why I use the word dance, a cadence that doesn't have to be completely like lockstep, but it does have to be like a river and people going in the same direction, you know, or else, yeah, or else the drift happens, and then I think, because we both work off each other, it's almost like, I mean, ideally both people are going, but in a way, one person has to go first because what happens is I know that if I create a space that feels safe for Vanessa, she's more open to connecting with me sensually, sexually, or whatever, right? If I feel grabby and unsafe, then it flips a magnet and that's not, she doesn't want to connect to me in that way. At the same time, if she connects to me, if she's spontaneous, if she's sexually explorative, if she's, desiring me, then it's much easier for me then to want to create a safe space, right? So like it all feeds into each other. And what we're trying to do is get the pistons pumping. What we're trying to do is can we both create a space for not only each other, but for the other person, knowing what they desire and want and what feels good and safe so that it becomes kind of like this flowing, so there's a flow to this. There is a running river instead of a stagnant lake.
Hmm.
And that I think is hard. That's hard to do, because people are stepping on each other's shoes. Also, if you're in a relationship, there's going to be history. There's sensitive topics. There's resentment. There's a lot of stuff that gets in the way. It's very different than if Vanessa and I just met 2 weeks ago and we're in our honeymoon stage. and we're just, ebbing and flowing that way,
It's also very different than meeting me at 30, between
right?
30 and 35, and meeting me between 35 and 42. It's like,
Mom, premenopause, like
well,
hormonal
yeah, I
changes.
mean, I think women 40 and after, I mean, look, I know men go through their own change as well, but it's just different, right? Like, just like men, but women, like, we continue to kind of establish a sense of self, and we slowly but surely, hopefully through a lot of work, start to strip away a lot of the, like, the choose me wound, and the, like, I need to please everybody at the expense of myself. And we start to be able to put ourselves first, and we start to be able to, I don't know, see a lot of the, like, patriarchal programming and nonsense that we've played into because we didn't have a choice, or we weren't aware of it, or whatever, right? And I remember when we were fighting recently, I said that, like, I'm not going back, right? Like, this is who I am. I'm becoming more and more solid in my sense of self, not less. And I'm
Well, you
very
you can't
different.
you can't you can't put the genie back in the bottle. You can't go
No,
back.
I'm
And,
so
and
different than I
either
was.
can I. I mean, evolution is only forward.
Hopefully, right? But I think that what you said earlier, this idea of you doing this celibacy experiment, I'm trying to think of a better word, journey, then challenge.
I
Maybe
like
I'll say
journey.
challenge,
I
journey.
like I like experiment. I am
Yeah,
experimenting. There's
yeah.
data.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about it, right, is obviously, and it's funny because I saw a couple women, not men, but I saw a couple women comment on some of your posts about your celibacy, like, "Hey, it's not a you thing; it's a you guys thing. Like, you're in this together.
Mhm.
It's not just the John Kim doing celibacy. Like, you're in a partnership, right? Like, it's you both are doing this journey." And it was a couple women were like, "How does she feel about this? Like, where's her voice on this? Right? It's important to hear her too," which I thought was interesting, but. Um, I'm taking this opportunity also to sit with myself, right, and my relationship. It's not because I can't go 30 days. I mean, I think that, again, I'm speaking generally here, but I think women, a lot of women can go longer um, than men, at least nowadays, from the people that I know, right? But it's not about the number of times. It's about me getting to know what my relationship is to sex and sexual connection in a relationship. And this is not going 30 days celibate when you're self partnered, because obviously that is a little bit easier, right? And I told you the other day, I think one of the, I wouldn't say it's a revelation because it wasn't super surprising to me, but it became very, like, in my body. I could not look away from it. The other day, I felt an energy mood shift in you, in kind of like the afternoon and the evening, and I noted it. Right, I'm hypersensitive to energy change. Um, I've been primed that way. Right, we'll call that being an air quote empath, which I have a feeling about this idea of it being some kind of spiritual gift versus something that we developed through needing to be on, being hyper vigilant. So I noticed this with you, and then I noted it, and then the next morning we woke up and it was still there, and you still were off, and then you went to the gym and you were still off, and I recognized in myself, whether it was a conscious thought or was kind of this feeling in my body. I looked at my calendar and I thought, huh, if we were not in this 30-day exploration around celibacy, I would put sex on the calendar today, and I would have sex with him because I know it would make him happy, and him being happier would impact me. It would impact our daughter. It would impact our flow as a family. So I would do that. And I wouldn't consider if I was actually desiring from a sensual place sexual connection. I would do it because it would make our dance feel better, right? Because it would change your mood. It would change
Would
how
I
you
would
show
I
up.
notice the
No,
the um
I
the
don't think you would.
exchange as far as your enthusiasm, or would I note that, oh, she's kind of going through the motions? I could tell she doesn't really want it because I've
I
also
don't
experienced
know.
that too.
You've experienced that too. I don't know. And here's why I say that. Maybe now I'm not as good at hiding it as I used to be. When I was younger, I was really good at hiding it.
Yeah.
Um, I was much better at acting. But I did notice that desire was there. I noticed the kind of tug to fix your mood
Hmm.
to make it easier on me, right? And I just remember noting, like, hot damn, Vanessa, 15 years into your codependency journey, and here you are, still, still struggling. I mean, that's codependency right there. I mean, Jesus,
But
if it were ever something.
you know what's interesting? I don't know if we talked about it, maybe a little bit, but, why are those the only 2 choices? Meaning, why can't a 3rd choice be, "Hey, I noticed this going on," which may be hard for you to do, is, "Let's talk about this."
Really hard for me to do. It's not that it's not a
Yeah,
choice, it's
'cause
there.
that
It's really fucking hard for me to do because
I would almost want that instead of the sex. So, like, I don't want forced sex or sex that is, taking care of my husband because, like you said once, with the a group of girlfriends, and you guys were just, just shooting the shit, just talking. I think, because we made it, kind of a funny thing, I noted it, but, back when you were in your 20s or back in the day that you would just, with your partner, just give them a blowjob so you didn't have to have sex with them, right? And this is, over mimosas and very, Sex and the City kind of environment, right? And I remember thinking, "Oh my god, do women do that?" And of course they do, right? But then I thought to myself, I don't want that for me. I don't want you to ever being like, "Ah, I don't wanna have sex with them, so I'm just gonna blow them." Like, I don't that makes me feel that definitely doesn't make me feel desired, right? So, uh, I would rather not have sex with you if you're doing it just for that. Now, look, to be real, there are gonna be days that both of us, um, are not self-abandoning, but not necessarily super enthusiastic about it because it fluctuates, right? It's like hunger. Sometimes we're really hungry, sometimes we're not. Sometimes we could have a meal, sometimes we wanna go to a buffet, whatever. Like, it's not a constant, but I do not want, um, intimacy from you if it's not coming up from a place of you either desiring it or open to it, right? You don't have to be like wanting to rip my clothes off because I don't know if that's realistic, right? Vice versa. I also don't want you to experience this and then mute, meaning you experience something weird with me, or I'm thinking about something else, or you feel like if there's drift. Um, you could be very accurate at noting drift, but that doesn't mean you know what's going on or where it's coming from. So if we don't talk about it, you're going to turn that into, oh, here he goes again. He hasn't changed, or you might come up with a belief that maybe not be accurate, and then that coin goes into the drift piggy bank instead of the connection piggy bank. So, like, the other choice here would be to talk about it, which is hard for you to do. I know it's hard for you to do, and try to talk about it in a way where both of us are more curious than defensive, which is also hard.
yeah, so a couple things that you just talked about I want to pull out. So, one, it is extremely hard for me and it's something that I've worked on, I mean, since I started going to therapy, which is long before you, right? Which is if I feel an energetic shift and the person is not forthcoming about why they have an
Mhm.
energetic shift,
Yeah.
the idea of asking you, absolutely, and I'm just being super honest, what happens in my body sends me into a rage.
Yeah,
It's not
because
even an upset, it's
you're angry
it's rage.
because now you're angry because you're labeling it as pouty.
No, no,
Um,
no. I'm not angry because I'm labeling as potty. I'm angry because there is a belief that stems from my childhood that there is an expectation that I need to take care of you,
right,
right?
right,
Like you
right.
can't take care of yourself. There's an expectation that I have to step in and take care of you, right? And this all goes back to way before you, right? And obviously like our story plays into it too, but
So
it's
wait, but if you ask me, I don't take it as you're taking care of me. I take it as you're concerned or you care. There's a difference between I care about you or I'm taking care of you. And so you see it as, oh, I gotta fucking take care of him. I
no, but
gotta
it's
ask him. I
I
see
ca-
it
I
as she
I
cares
can't
about the
explain
relationship.
this. No, because what it is if your energy has shifted and you're not forthcoming about that, but it requires me to say, "Hey, I notice a shift. Is everything okay?" The reason why that makes me like have that feeling of anger is because it feels manipulative in some way. It feels
Mm,
like I'm just going to need, like, I have no self awareness over how I'm showing up. I'm going to let my energy affect you. And I'm going to wait for you to come to me and say, hey, what's wrong? I've noticed this thing, right? Versus saying, hey, heads up. I know I'm a little off today, but I'm thinking about X, Y, and Z, whatever. It doesn't have anything to do with you, right? There's a big difference for me. And that is what stems from my childhood, right? It's the expectation. First of all, it's laced with I have no self-awareness, which that in and of itself enrages me.
But
Like
that's not true.
I'm just saying this is what comes from my childhood. It's
Right.
laced with that, and then it's the expectation of being taken care of, right? And so I still have to work through that because I have to get over the hump of the anger that comes up around his energy has changed.
Yes, and so, there has been times for sure in my past where, the energy was pouty and obvious and
Mhm.
unfair, disruptive. Lately, sometimes I don't say anything because I'm trying to take responsibility by self-soothing, and so you may feel it because you are an empath, but I'm trying to work things out. I'm not mad. I'm just trying to work through my shit. I mean, I haven't had um, like so. For example, this situation, and then I also think like she knows that for the last 12 days I haven't been sexual or ejaculated. And by the way, I'm not doing this to say that Vanessa and I are basically friends for a month. That's not what we're doing. We can actually have um, intimacy. I just don't want to. I just get, it's on me. Like I'm not gonna finish, right? So we could also have sex. I'm just not gonna finish, kind of thing, right? So I want to explore what it feels like for me to have discipline and self control and channel sexual energy, right? I don't want
By the
this
way,
to be.
that's new news. You never said that we could have sex, but you don't ejaculate, but keep going. So that was part of it.
Yeah, I could pleasure you. You could pleasure me. I just don't feel like I think the ejaculation, the wanting to finish is the pattern that I want to break, not the fact that we're having sex. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, that's what's important to me. That's what so what I don't want this to be is, oh, great, 30 days. I'm relieved John's gonna not have sex with me. So like it shouldn't be like a get out of free or like, okay, I could breathe for 30 days. I don't have to be intimate with John. That's that's not what I want this like, if you see it that way, that would then hurt my feelings. Do you know what I'm saying? It's just something I'm exploring for myself, and it's gonna affect you. But, uh, also to consider, yeah, I mean, going through something, it's like if someone's fasting, they're they're of course, they're gonna have days they're good, and their days they're gonna be fucking hangry, and, I'm just exploring. It is my technical, journey, exploration, experiment, and of course, I'm not trying to put anything on you, but at the same time, it involves us and we live together. So it's one thing to consider. So yeah, I may be going through things, and you also know that at night it's so hard for me because of I spin or how we are, and at night you could just knock out, you know, and table it. I struggle with that. During the days, it's much easier. Um, but yeah, sometimes I go through things and I try to self soothe in my way, and I think I'm being responsible. But what you're getting on your side is, oh, he's being irresponsible because his energy is changing. He's not telling me, he's punishing me, which is not what I'm trying to do. But I could see how that comes off based on your story and also our story, right?
Mhm.
If that's also been a pattern that I've early in our relationship and been pouty or moody because we're not having as much sex or being intimate. So then now that feels like a consequence to you. That's I get it. I get it. So a lot of it is sure residue. Sometimes I feel like it's not big enough to bring up, but sometimes I feel like I don't want to even mention it because then she's going to have to do something she doesn't want to do, sit down and have a hard conversation. She's busy, I'm busy. Like, John, just go handle it. Go fucking take a cold shower, go work out, go whatever. And so the energy can shift and I could be in my head or spinning. But sometimes I'm trying to work through it myself, you know.
Yeah, the other thing I wanted to call out really quick was how many times my girlfriends and I have had conversations where we've said like we were actually surprised that you were surprised about the blowjob comment. Like women talk about this so often, so much so. I mean, shit, Glennon Doyle wrote about it in Untamed, right?
Well,
Like
I've I've
she,
I've I've never been, like, in a dating space where like I've always been in like these mm, intimate relationships for 3 years, 5 years, 3 years, 5 years, some stretches of singlehood. So I don't know. I guess I've never experienced that, but maybe they have just never told me.
Well, I think it's more that. I think it's
Yeah,
more
I
like
don't
the
know.
men who say like women have never faked an orgasm with me, and all the women
Well,
are
I know
like,
that happens. I
okay,
know that happens.
it was more not like a you specific. It was more like, oh my god, do men not realize that we do this? You know what I
Well,
mean? It
what
was one of those surprises. Like I said, like Glennon Doyle in Untamed, she talks about when her and her husband, like when she was waking up to the fact that she didn't want to be married to Craig anymore, she had a therapist that literally just said to her, just give him a blowjob, right? It'll be fine. And every woman that read that book was like, uh-huh, like we've all been there, right?
yeah,
And so it was more like a shock that like, do men not realize that we do this? And then I remember you saying like, isn't that more intimate? And we were like, oh my God, no, that's not more intimate. It's like so much more intimate to have sex. And that was
sure.
like another thing that blew your mind, right? And it was, I think it was more just funny that we like the women versus men kind of conversation that all the women I've talked to have been like, fascinating. We thought men would have realized that, right? And apparently they
Well,
didn't.
it can be more intimate depending on your intention and how you do it. If your goal is to get him off as fast as you can, of course, that's not intimate. But if you actually enjoy that almost more than sex, then the blowjob can actually be more intimate than sex. So it all depends. I think what for me was kind of I think my reaction to it was there was no conversation. There's manipulation in a certain extent, right? There's a con. There's a I don't want to do this. I'm just going to do this, and then so you're having someone believe that you're doing something that you actually like, but you're actually doing this because you don't want to do that. So there's a there's a fake. there's a
100%.
something, and that to me is what I didn't like. It isn't actually the thing. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right. No, I completely agree with you. There is a manipulation in that. And I think that goes back all the way to the beginning of our conversation when we were talking about the changing landscape in heterosexual relationships, right? Where like, of course it was manipulative, but like women had to do what they had to do up
Sure, I
until
get it.
very
I
recently,
get
right?
it. I get it.
And so
Yeah.
now we women are also, we have to take responsibility, right? For how we've played in. Now that we are air quotes safe enough to actually say no, now it's time to start unpacking some of this generational nonsense and stop doing some of the manipulative behavior, right? Like I was saying, I had that revelation. Oh, I would have just had sex with him so that he would have been happier, so that my day would have felt easier, right? And actually, we have to stop and step back and go, oh, in what ways have I contributed to these unhealthy dynamics, the resentment, the buildup, all of these things, and of course, women have played a role in that too. Now, but I think that this is, like I said before, the first generation where we've actually been able to stop and unpack that. I don't think we could do that
So
before.
I don't think I would have been happier, babe, unless unless I was totally conned and I was like, oh, she's really wanting me and this is hot and passionate. If I had felt any sense that you were doing it out of obligation, that wouldn't have not have made me happier. That would have made me feel less desired, more pushed aside than desired,
I think a few
so
years ago, you wouldn't have known, honestly.
sure, sure, but I'm also 52 now, so, like, a few years ago, I even if I knew, I wouldn't care. I'd be like, "Alright, I got it," or I got release, or I got connection. It
Yep.
would just been skin hunger, right? Like,
Yeah.
in my 20s, I don't give a fuck if you loved me, you know? But now I do care. Now I it turns me off. Now it's like
Yeah.
I can't just, like, um, get turned on by that
But
unless we're
that's
talking
also
about
part of
a s what's that?
that's also part of the conversation too, right? And that's, I think, this whole idea of generational, the changing in generations is like, even the fact that we would say like, when I was 20, I wouldn't have cared.
Mhm.
um I think that's changing, and I love that that's changing, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't think this new generation of men would actually, I mean, of course, again, I'm generalizing, right? But I don't think that they would say the same thing. Like I think it's conversations that people are having much younger. Women are being honest much younger, right? Because again, they have the safety to do that. Men are kind of owning their part much younger, right? They're looking at the ways that kind of they've been steeped in patriarchy and showed up in a patriarchal way in their relationships, right? And so I'm loving this younger generation and the way that they're unpacking what you and I are doing at like 40 and 50. they're like coming out the gate doing, right? Like they're
Yeah.
having these conversations from the jump. And that makes me, that gives me a sigh of relief, I think, for like our daughter, that I'm really hoping that it's not that she's going to have to unlearn this bullshit like I'm unlearning it at 40. She's just never going to learn it at all.
Yeah.
And that
Mhm.
I love, right? Like I don't ever want her to look at me and be trained in the skills of self-abandonment and manipulation in relationships, right? I don't want her to even know those things. I don't want her to know those skills. Um, and I'm hoping that the work that we're doing now is the pathway to that, that she won't ever have to learn that, you know.
So let's end on this. What is, halfway in, almost 2 weeks in? What is some of the things that you are learning um, because of my celibacy experiments? So, for example, one thing that I'm learning is, and this is like the big thing that I struggle with, is how much is sexual expression and life force? How much of it is just me being me? When in early days, I've also been in relationships where I was shamed for sexual expression. I've also been in a relationship where my sexual expression didn't even match the other person. So like I've been in all different relationships, but today as a 52-year-old, where's the line between my truth, my sexual expression, and how I am? So whether that's flirting or interested in different types of kinks or whatever, and how much of it is you know how much of it is self abandonment, and how much of it is like truth and coming from a healthy place, right? How much of it is not numbing, grabbing, um coming from a place where it's um, not grounded or safe. I don't know, I'm on that journey, right? Part of this is to maybe get more clear on that. For you, what are some of your revelations?
I mean, I think I spoke to the one, right, which is like just continuing to explore my relationship to using sex as a tactic, right? I think a lot of women can relate to that. Using sex as a tactic to keep myself emotionally safe, right? I think there's that always. I also think that it feels good to feel desire. I think that
Mm,
when there's space and there's distance, I'm able to actually feel in my body the feeling of sexual desire. I think
mm,
oftentimes it's hard for me to tap into that because there is a bit of a chase feeling, right?
yeah.
Um, and so it doesn't feel sometimes like I even have the space to actually be in my embodiment, and be in my desire. And so I actually feel that right now, and that feels good for me. To me, what's interesting is that feeling, it doesn't feel like something I have to release or get rid of. It actually
It
feels like
brews.
something I'm enjoying feeling and just letting it be there and embodying that feeling, right?
I mean,
Which is which is
that's part of the
interesting.
learning for me, but also never going to be my 100% truth, right? I think part of it is also whether we're talking about how our stars are lined up, you being a Taurus, me being an Aries, it's kind of not how we're wired, but that it's also the stretch. So, like, for me, why does the water have to be boiling? Why can't it be at a simmer, right? Why can't it feel good here? Why do you need
Mm,
why do you need to hit the sport mode, or why do you need to quote unquote, finish?
right.
And that's the whole part of this experiment is um, what works for me and what doesn't, and how that impacts you.
Yeah.
We have 2 minutes. Get naked. I want you on the bed. Sorry,
We have 30 seconds.
did I say that out loud? Thank you for listening. And listen, Vanessa and I are going to continue this conversation because one thing that's bigger than anything we're talking about is where Vanessa and I fall as far as helping other people and using our story to help other people. I really appreciate your vulnerability. And I feel like you get the most aroused when we're doing this. It's not when we're in the bedroom, when
100%.
we're aligned in mission.
I'm aroused
Um,
by your intellect more than
y-
anything.
yeah, aligned in mission, not missionary. So
Yes.
my dad jokes don't fly. That definitely is not going to turn her on. So I should stop talking. Thank you for listening. Be well. There will be continual conversations as we also learn about all of this ourselves. Be well.